Everybody
By that,
present.
there's nothing but racism, segregation.
Mama G.
You got the mama G. And Mr. Fantastic Face. So rich and white, like I'm running against a cheesecake. Republicans need a puppet, and I'm the head of state.
You're like a head of cabbage.
About to get smacked by my stimulus package.
Chocolate on my earbuds.
So maybe you just put it up your poopy little butt.
Maybe this is poop. Would you do the kind of... It is chocolate. Chocolate? It's kind of good chocolate, too. It smells, tastes, and is chocolate. It's not chocolate on my earbuds. Yeah, suck that off. Alright. I gotta figure out exactly what song it is. Hopefully the wind doesn't fuck everything. Well, I'm gonna be able to... So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna start recording the audio, and we're just gonna sit for a few minutes. For a few moments, I mean. And that'll give me background where I can go and edit out the background noise later. Okay. Mr. Steve?
Mr. Steve Jobs over here.
I know Photoshop.
You guys watch this first?
Yeah. You should have put guest appearance time. Probably should have.
On this one, you say guest appearance and just put all of us, except for Nick.
Alright. The main duo is Nick and Dave.
Even though you can't see Cortez, you put him in. They're like, this is other
No, you say a mysterious voice.
Cortez
Nigga.
Say something about the audio. Something about the audio. Okay.
Brandon's taking a piss.
Say something again now.
Can you
That's
hear
back.
it?
Say something again now to the audio. Oh, that's much better. Okay, so I found, because this has 3 different settings, I had to figure out which one was going to be best for it right now. Real
I
quickly,
get
everyone
that,
sound off.
let me get that, Wesley.
Sound off as our names.
Hello?
Yeah,
Alright, who goes first? Left or right?
sure.
Go, Cortez.
No, mysterious voice, go.
Go. You aren't saying your names, but okay.
I'm
Brandon.
Wesley.
Why are you still pointing at Wesley?
Schmeat. Because I want the Packer.
I was like,
Ain't no
Alright.
Green Bay.
Fuck.
was that off the dome?
Off
Off
the
the
dome.
fucking knob.
Coming from the headpiece.
What's that acid rap? It's like Packers. Like he shouts out Green
Saggy,
Bay.
Flacker.
Green Bay Packers.
All right, I guess I gotta listen to acid rap all the way through until I find it again.
Play acid rap the whole album.
Matthew.
Hey guys, I'm really sad I couldn't get juice.
Yo,
You
little
bitches
fire
are
maker.
trying.
Replay
Get
to
you them
replays Green Bay to
tissues.
Packers.
That's it.
I'm coming fresh off the dome piece.
Ooh.
Okay.
Replay
I
to
say this 'cause you
replays
know me.
Green Bay to Packers.
I thought you were going to rhyme with tissues.
I'm a smoke blowing homie.
I got it.
Your girl stay below me.
All right.
I need the little fire maker.
Yeah, you can fucking wait. Damn. I can't be saying that. That's
Well.
where you just add in the noise.
You just say we're saying
Retard. Nightmare.
Jesus, that smells good. Actually, this smells kind of nice. All right. So, unless there's anything else we want to pause for, I think we're good to go. I've already been recording for an entire minute.
Uh-oh.
So, we're just going to go off with an intro. Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is officially the second episode of, what do we name it again?
Lighthearted
Banter. I remember that. We came up with like 7 different names, though, so it's hard to keep them
What's the
straight.
acronym for that?
LB.
LHB.
Lighthearted is one word.
That's why Brandon's here. To set you straight.
Lighthearted is one word, though.
I would say LB then, because
I mean, we can call it LHB, but it's not exactly.
Call it DL.
BLT.
This is on the DL.
All right, welcome back to the official second episode of Lighthearted Banter. I already did it, and I'll keep the first one too, but we were just talking, so I wanted to get us back on track a little bit.
Should we look at each other or the camera?
We can do whatever makes us feel more natural. The camera's not going to catch us too well anyway. It's kind of just there because I want something playing whenever I post this on YouTube. This is going to be available on YouTube, SoundCloud, and Podbean, which is a site specifically for podcasts. Podbean, yeah. You probably never even heard of it before. I certainly didn't.
Are you sponsored?
No, I'm not sponsored, although we welcome
Not
anyone.
sponsored. We welcome Pepsi Max. No, they don't even make it anymore.
Also sponsor JPEG Mafia at www.jpegmafia.com/merch.
Don't be saying we sponsor them.
You're
we'll
not.
get
You're a
lawsued.
guest. So our guests today.
So,
You have no.
Our guests
have
today
no-
are. Let's go start from this way.
blueprint.com.
This is Brandon,
Hello.
Our buddy
AKA
Brandon.
Butterbutt.
I'm Wesley.
AKA
Commie Butt.
bleep it out.
I'm Devadio. I was
AKA
a phone call from the previous episode.
Hairy Butt. Sorry.
Harry
That's a
Butt.
new
You do have
AKA.
That's a
hairy
good one.
ass.
And if he makes any
And Mystery
contributions, there's
Voice,
somebody else
AKA
over there.
Juicy Pooper.
We have a mysterious guest that doesn't want to know his identity.
Which is completely fine.
You
You know what?
shoot the
Because I will say, if you do want to speak, I will use a voice modulator on your voice.
They make it real
Make sure
deep.
you
Don't.
censor out his name.
Yeah.
Say his name.
Well, yeah, I'm
Oh,
gonna
that'd be great.
bleep and cancel everything
For
out.
future pain,
Every-
censor that part. all
Every
right?
time
From
we
now
reference
on,
to him, bleep it
Future
out.
Peyton, censor that out. From now on, we're going to refer to that gentleman as Afro
As Juicy
for no reason
As Conrad
in
Tokyo.
particular. So we'll start with Brandon
As
since he's the
Token
one that
Afro.
we've.
I gotta
Bars.
change my PSN account name to that.
What, token
That'll
after?
be fine, that'll be
Conrad
fine.
Tokyo.
It's
Goes
fine.
along
It's the whole
with
point
It
to have
is.
fun.
It is lighthearted banter.
Let's start over here with Brandon. Brandon, how are you doing today? We haven't
can
seen
we
you yet
talk
today,
about-
really.
I
Can
know.
we talk about the setting?
We can absolutely talk
Because
Yeah,
about
let's
it.
start over here at Brandon.
So
Wesley
you'll
takes
notice-
it.
Well, no, that's completely
No.
fine. I was just
No,
trying to
yeah.
give us some
Settings are
direction.
different
Let's
from
talk-
last
yeah,
episode.
Let's talk about
Let's talk about where we're
our
at,
setting.
yeah.
So right now, we're not going to share this
We're in-
location unless we do. I don't actually know.
We are
Um,
in the great state of Iowa.
He
There's a
just-
nice park there called the Chamoyan Woods, and it's beautiful. There's lakes everywhere. It's quite beautiful.
Everything you just said was completely incorrect.
Actually, I mean, there may be something like that in Iowa, and there may be lakes there, but that's not where we are, and I don't know that to be true.
No, we're there.
We are
Hey,
in.
some dude in that park right now who's gonna be listening to this is gonna be like, "Yo,
Shout outs to-
Chamoyan Woods."
Our actual location is
It's Potato
Hoosier National
Land.
Forest in Brown County, Indiana. This is.
God damn it!
I think this
Well,
area
now
is
they're
called
gonna find
Beck's
us.
Grove.
D-Dogs, us.
That's what the road. Yeah, the road is.
Beck's Grove is the area. It's right next to a place called Sundance Lake. Now,
Yo,
I
shout
actually know
out,
this to be
hometown.
true, but I believe I've heard
Little
that
Rock,
Sundance Lake
Arkansas.
used to be a Native American reservation, and it was kind of a
Damn
special place for
Indians.
them. And we kicked them out, of course, which is just
Yeah,
something
fuck
that we do.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's a little bit of history for you there. I might actually look that up in case we.
By the way, we do not
You're gonna
condone.
look that up with no
Alcoholism
Wi-Fi on your laptop
and/or
in the middle of the
smoking
woods.
Oh yeah, I didn't.
We don't
we do.
condone it.
I can do a hotspot. It's not worth it. Let's talk about our setting though. Let's talk about how cool this place is. So
There's trees.
There's banter, and it's lighthearted.
Hell yeah.
I see grass.
There's
Hey, let's play a
drip.
game called I See That. Do you see that lake?
I see that.
I
I
see
do see that.
That like sucks for
Do you
fishing.
see
Yeah.
the, do you see the viewer watching? Broke the fourth wall. We're out here.
I see that. It's a wonderful location. We decided to come out here for a, quick camping trip. It's not going to be as long as we wanted it to be, but this spot is pretty remote. You've got to take a bunch of touchy roads to get out here, and a long gravel road to even get to this spot. So it definitely feels remote and a little bit out of the way, which is excellent.
This wind's gonna be.
This wind is going to be a pain, but I'm going to do my best to edit it in Audacity, the free audio editing software. Not sponsored.
Oh, I thought you were just throwing out big words.
No, it's a
Like.
editing software for audio.
Are you sponsored?
Good plunking.
No, it's free. I mean,
That's a big
they just let
word.
anybody
you're-
download it. Yeah.
Is it a word?
That's
Is it
another big word.
Numina ultramicroscopic silicovolcanio.
Can you say that
That's
louder and
not
spell
a
it?
word.
Say that loud and proud, right into this microphone, please.
Then spell
No, you're not close enough.
Numina
Closer.
ultramicroscopic silicovolcaniosis. That starts with a P.
Nerd.
I don't know the rest of it.
Pterodactyl also starts
It's a disease you get from working in a mine. So
No, that's a canary.
That's,
Try
that's
hard,
like the
try.
longest word in the English dictionary. Right?
Sound off,
it is
Mystery Afro
40,
Man.
45 letters.
What about
Sounds
Southern
like a
Playalistic
urban
Cadillac
name.
music?
Southern Playalistic Cadillac music.
That sounds
Fuck,
like an
actually,
urban
can you
name.
look up what?
We can't. We don't have any
I, mean,
Wi-Fi.
I have my phone. I
We've
can
been
look
over
something up.
this.
AT aliens. right?
I can't.
No, that's
What do
the
you?
name of the album.
What do you want me to look up?
Southern
It
Tennessee.
is the longest.
I drove the Cobalt.
It's
down here.
called something. I can
I don't
never
know.
remember what it is.
I might be able to drive my Ranger
It's
down.
the longest word
Oh,
that is
what
multiple
Brandon
words
just
put
said?
into the same.
Is the longest word in
the
English?
Sly Fox
Word.
jumped over
Yeah,
the
Nick.
fence.
I didn't know that that's what he was doing. I thought he
Nick
just
is
knew
that
that, and that is the longest
That's
word.
what it stated. It's
Or is
45
that
letters.
A word.
I can't
That's the
remember.
longest.
It's like it's a word that has like all the letters in the English dictionary.
Oh, well, that's not the same thing.
I remember.
Pneumonal-tramicroscopic silicovolcanoscenosis.
Are you looking up his?
The longest word in any of the major English language dictionaries is that word that is said. A word that refers to a lung disease contracted from the inhalation of very fine silica particles, specifically from a volcano.
Silica.
Medically,
Assassin's Creed
it is the
Origins.
same
Great
as
game.
silicosis. There's a little bit of
It's a
tidbit medical history for you.
It's like a subset of a
Vanilla is really
disease,
good.
and it. Yeah, they're like they need another word, and they're like, "Yo, let's make it the longest word ever."
Oh, that's excellent. I mean, if you're gonna make the longest word ever, it might as well be something
All
useless,
of the longest
right?
words are diseases.
Yeah.
Not true.
Cancer's not that long.
Well,
Age is 3
Anti-disestablishmentarianism.
letters.
anti-disestablishmentarianism
Brandon
is a
knows
long
all of
word.
them.
Age is 3
Yeah.
letters.
I thought I was
Age.
gonna be Eminem when I was in
Age.
7th grade, so I
Oh, I
read
thought
the
you said
dictionary.
age. Age is a disease.
Oligarchy.
That's so
pretty
funny.
long.
My
You know,
mother.
you know what's another
We've got
long
4
word?
different
Not in
conversations
length
going.
of
This is
letters,
not
but
gonna be a
long
good
time.
podcast.
Racism.
And it's picking everything up.
Lighthearted banter.
Just bantering while multiple conversations go at the same time.
No,
We're going to do a segment where you choose who to listen to, and we're just going to have different conversations going on.
no, honestly, we could make like 4 different podcasts off of all of it.
Oh, we could. But the problem is we're all talking at once, so like no one's gonna be able to follow each thing that's happening.
Podcast, you don't talk. You sit in silence and breathe heavily on the mic.
That's ASMR. That's a completely different
No,
genre.
that's a
He said it
porn
first.
category.
ASMR?
Yeah, BSMAR.
I thought
No,
it was
that's-
called VR.
BDSM.
ASML is
I know-
a program.
I know
What
a
do
little
you
bit
know
about that.
Not
Bondage,
I know.
dominance,
Nothing.
We can
bondage,
Google that.
dominance,
'Cause I'm a cop.
sadism, and
I'm not
masochism.
that.
BDSM.
I like that.
Can you say that again?
Bondage. I already forgot. Bondage, dominance, sadism, and masochism.
Satanism.
I'm pretty sure.
Soccer.
It's-
Misogynistic.
Socialism,
Satanism.
Satanism, and sodomy. You know what those have in common, boys?
No, what does it have?
They
in
all
common?
start with an S. Big ol' ass. You know what else starts with an S? Soccer. That's why soccer's the devil.
I like soccer.
So let's talk about our
Tragic.
favorite high school memories.
Ooh. Go Nick.
I figure that we all have some good stories to tell.
I
We
gotta think on this one.
you got to think on this one. I was just thinking about this because Wesley and I earlier were playing
Think about
Ultimate,
favorite memories.
and one of my favorite memories from high school
Not
was my
playing
senior
Center Grove
project.
game.
Senior project for probably most schools or people that don't know. At our school and in our county was a project you had to complete as a senior before you could graduate. It was
Hence the name,
supposed
Senior Project.
Yeah, it was supposed to enrich the community and help you be a leader in different ways and things like that. Most people completely blew it off and did the bare minimum, like Mr. Nick Tungate over here.
And Mr. Wesley Barker.
Who- What was your senior project again, Nick? Oh, he's mad that I said this.
All right,
but-
we'll go to Brandon then.
We'll go-
Mine was the bare minimum. I
actually don't know your project. Go ahead.
so there's a shot put pit at our school, and
He cleaned
Oh,
weeds
I
out of it.
forgot
cleaned
you
weed-
did
I-
shot put.
I
You're
cleaned
gonna
weeds
see
out of it.
piss come out of the corner of his.
Damn it, we actually started to have a decent talk.
I know.
And now everything started fucking
Okay. But for those of you listening,
listening.
Wesley just poured.
Wes,
One out for the
I was okay.
Wait, actually, hold on. Let me write this.
Time out.
No.
I was gesturing to the left where Wesley is sitting, and I completely knocked the
Party
drink
foul,
out of
Peyton has
Wesley's
to
Bro,
drink
drink.
having
every
this
beer
go
in
in
the
my
cooler.
ass is giving
After-
me
Oh,
buzz.
After Afro Man
Peyton.
accidentally spit out water all over the leg of DeVadio.
My dick is so wet.
Fuck yeah. Peyton,
Oh, you didn't
party
drink
foul.
it?
You gotta drink every beer in the cooler.
No fuck. You want me to die?
No,
Yeah.
you gotta. I want you to drink every beer in the cooler.
Well, not everyone, because I need a new one.
So there's a shot put pit at your school.
Oh, yeah.
At our school.
Yeah, I cleaned the weeds out of it, and I smoothed gravel over it, and that was pretty much it. I also took out there were these metal rings around the discus
Sure.
ring. I replaced those.
That's really interesting.
It
So-
really was.
for the sake of pointing this out, because I'm sure if there's ever going to be anybody else listening to this, they're not going to really understand why that would be a project you need to complete before graduating.
Mm-hmm.
Simply, you use that as a means to explain that you are benefiting the community to some degree, being the high school,
road, right?
because other people use the shot put ring, right? And well, a lot of people, most people wouldn't, but those that would benefited from him cleaning it out and redoing it, right? Yeah. And how would you say that? How would you say that you demonstrated leadership and things like that for that?
I did.
I remember.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the point.
The hardest part about the project is explaining why it is important and why it should be done, right?
Sure.
I remember for mine, I said something about how like it's in like terrible shape and it's not been worked on in years and it's like just in piss poor shape, right?
And if I may, that's a lot of exaggeration.
Oh
isn't
yeah,
it?
incredible.
You have to for this kind of project because, quite frankly, it's unnecessary.
Yeah. Oh, it's completely unnecessary. I literally played. I played
And
in the
hundreds
dirt
of-
for like 6 hours.
And hundreds of students do it every single year, and there are only so many projects that could be done, right? That actually have a meaningful benefit.
Like the church basketball league that somebody always does every single year, but it's always awesome because
Or
you
like-
wanna do it.
What is it?
Like
Dance
the suicide
Marathon
watch,
started as a
like
senior
walk
project.
things.
Is that right?
What was it?
Dance
Beneficial
Marathon?
stuff.
Yeah, Dance Marathon.
Oh,
And
wait,
now
that
that occurs every year, that's like one of the only ones that has had a lasting impact, I would say, that I can think of.
Yeah.
Most of them. So like mine, for example. My senior project was holding an ultimate frisbee event. I originally wanted to hold a club and host a club to have people regularly meet to play ultimate because that's a game I love very much. I've got a frisbee sitting right over here, but I didn't have the time and I lost track of the day. So I wound up just holding an event to raise awareness, to explain to people how to play the game, and whatever else I could think of, frankly. It wound up being a lot of fun and a lot of people enjoyed it, but it was mainly just an extended group of my own friends and nobody else. And I still got the highest score possible on
That
it.
made
and
it so fun.
And that was made it so fun, and it was a success. But I remember explaining to my judges, because you present this project in front of a panel of teachers randomly assigned from the entire school, and they would sit and they would judge you based off of your presentation as well. And I remember standing there, giving this presentation and doing the very, like Brandon mentioned, very most to expand on the minor issue that there was. There was no club or no event. And I went on talking about how so many people never know of the game and don't know any of the rules and could be explained about it. And I was going on and on. And yeah, that's to some degree true, of course. There are definitely people that don't know enough about it.
But after showing up and playing it, I was like, I got it down, and we
Yeah.
could totally set up like a, what is it called?
A match.
Pickup match.
Yeah, which I'm happy that actually some people got some benefit from. But of course, there are also a lot of people that just didn't. But I went ahead and I made sure to explain a whole lot more of how grand it was and everything. That's the kind of thing it was. Wesley, what was your senior project? I don't recall.
My senior project was I did it with my grandpa, and normally you're not supposed to have your family member as the person who oversees your project, but they said it was okay for me.
Right, because you're
I don't
supposed
know
to
why,
have...
but I was
Because you're
thinking,
Wesley Barnes.
sweet.
Because you're required to have a mentor, somebody from the community, ideally somebody in the field or the area that you're working on your project, right?
Yeah.
And you're required to have somebody like that. So,
But I explained to them what my project was, which was I illustrated a children's book that he wrote.
oh really?
Yeah.
I actually did not know that at all.
Yeah, and then we got it not necessarily published, but we used
redone.
I think it was called like Firefly.
Yeah.
Which was the site where you can go on and edit your photos and stuff and then get it printed off as a book.
That's really interesting. I had no clue that was the case. That's actually a
Yeah.
really cool project. Now,
It was
I'll ask you
alright.
the same
It was
thing.
really stressful.
I'll ask you
I'm
a
sure
similar
like everybody
thing.
else's was, they think they have a great idea, which they enjoy, but then it ends up being real stressful because they got to get it done before a certain time to get it presented.
Right.
But I mean, I felt good about it. I was glad that I could give my... Oh yeah, also, after we finished it, we were going to donate it to my old elementary school.
That's actually really cool. I did not
So
know
it's
this
in
at
their
all.
it's in their library now.
So the book that you illustrated that your grandfather wrote
Be a mill.
is now at your old elementary school. That kind of thing is actually a cool thing.
But I mean,
quite
it's
frankly,
not like
Whether it had a big impact or not.
you have to
is-
say what kind of leadership skills you took
Yeah.
or how it impacted the community. It didn't. It was just, I thought it was kind of a cool idea.
I mean, I agree with you though. I think that is a cool idea. That's something that it kind of shows the scope of what they allow these senior projects to be. But there is a lot of wiggle room, and a lot of people abuse that wiggle room. Devadio, I don't actually know what your senior project was either.
I helped make 2 benches, basically.
I remember now, yeah.
A shelter for people that currently were homeless and/or previous addicts
Uh-huh.
that needed a place to get on their feet for the time being, since they didn't have enough money for rent and such.
So you just constructed the 2 benches to be at this? Was it like a shelter or a facility, or was it?
Well, it was a shelter, but they didn't want to call it like a homeless shelter because of like derogatory terms. And shit
There's kind of a stigma to that. I'm certain. My girlfriend's dad actually works primarily in a homeless shelter, and I don't know what they call it. They call it the shelter. It's in Columbus, but he has talked before about how there's a lot of people that don't like going to it because of the stigma to that kind of thing. But that's actually really cool to build something like that. Is it something else? I agree. Actually has a benefit to the community.
Yeah, it does.
And I like that. I actually didn't know the details to that.
Come back over there and say something also about the senior project stuff after I get this over.
Okay. Because from there, I actually can't hear you too well, but from right here, I actually hear him really well. And so, Nick, do you want to share what your senior project was?
Yeah. So, why are you guys laughing?
Oh, no reason.
Payne just gave me a silly look.
Payne's always trying to cut me down, so that's good.
Hey.
No, you are. Shut up.
You constantly make fun of me, buddy.
So,
Hold on.
All the time.
This is the banter.
Head your tail.
This is lighthearted
banter.
banter.
I want.
You win.
So, me and a group of outstanding volunteers in my local community went to a national historical landmark of our community.
Where was it?
It was Mill Race Park,
Okay,
which
yeah.
there's railroad tracks that go through there, and there used to be a mill there back in the day, and they host a free concert every year, where they try to at least. But over the years, it has just become littered with trash and just like beer cans, fishing stuff, just all over the place. And a lot of the park has actually been shut down compared to when I was younger. And I used to go there a lot with my family, so the park actually means something to me. So me and a group of my friends from school, we went and picked up some garbage and stuff, and just try to clean up the park as best we could.
Right, and how many days did you end up of cleaning did you end up performing?
I have photos to prove I was there for 3 days.
And since it's been so long afterwards, it's not going to affect it. How many days were you actually out there, Nick?
Huh?
How many days did you actually go out there and clean?
Photos for 3 days.
That's all you need.
That's all you need. How much trash did you end up picking up, Nick?
I actually had
Well, how can you even gauge that? You can just say
bags.
X number of bags,
Okay.
or
Yeah,
you know,
considering out of a lot of the people that actually went with me, I was really the only one picking up trash.
Wait, was I there?
No,
I was
maybe.
gonna.
I don't know.
I was also going to ask. I don't recall. I certainly don't recall being there
I was
myself.
there. I helped you.
asked people if they wanted to go.
I mean, he has
Yeah,
pictures
I was there.
Yeah.
to prove who was there.
I
Yeah.
forgot.
For 3 days.
And
Yeah, I did help you. Promise.
well, there you go.
There's pictures of 3 days.
Yeah.
There's
It's the same
pictures.
thing.
of
I'm
3
gonna
days
be in
worth
some
of
of them.
cleaning.
But I myself had probably filled like 3 trash bags of just like broken styrofoam cups and
Now,
shit.
I remember you joking about taking trash out to Millrace to then pick up for the pictures.
Yes.
I remember those being jokes. Was that actually the case for this project?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Because my great
You're not
community,
gonna have him sell himself
my
out.
great community of North Vernon, Indiana,
Yep.
He keeps doing that.
likes to shit on everywhere and leave drug stuff everywhere.
Drug stuff.
So I did.
So
I
is
did
there-
help you with yours, but I also helped.
You participated in mine.
I
Oh,
helped-
you actually
yeah,
you're going
I
somewhere
helped-
else.
I was in yours, but then I also helped Trey do his, which was building a doghouse in our garage for the Humane Society.
Oh, that's
A couple
something that
times.
Easy way out of the fucking senior project, build a doghouse.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
Humane
donate
Society,
stuff to Humane Society.
And I mean,
have a what do they call it?
Did you ever hear
A
about
drive
that one kid
or
from
a
Leeds that
donation.
because my
He made
original,
the bed of his truck, and that was his entire senior project.
my
Who was
original.
that?
East, because East had way more limitations, or not. Sorry, we had more limitations at North than East.
Columbus East is the
East,
other high school of our
More
of our
people
city.
did personal
North
shit
and
than
East.
community stuff, and they could still like pass.
Right, I recall that. So
That's kinda
what,
crazy.
what was his project that you said?
By what I heard was like he basically remodeled the bed of his truck, or he did something with his truck.
His truck.
Well, I mean, East would allow that because
That's what I'm saying.
East is kind of full of the bubs of
The
the
hicks.
of the county. The Hicks.
I like how we got two guys repping North right now.
we
I
in
would
the
have
same
that shirt
Yeah,
on.
we have the
actually.
same shirt on.
Yeah, yeah.
That's remarkable. I
Yeah.
love that.
Nick said he had his.
That's remarkable.
It is remarkable.
Throwing out these words, gotta let the
My
people
original
know.
idea
Is
for
that-
my
is that-
senior project, I just want to state,
Go ahead.
I was gonna try to get trash cans installed along the people trail.
Oh, that's actually a really
Yeah,
good.
that
I was
would've
idea.
been
gonna build,
solid,
like
'cause
metal.
when
It was a
if we
great
go
idea,
out
and I
there,
pitched it to
yeah.
the Parks and Rec, and they said, "Yeah, we got to email an architect who installed the benches, which they spent $50,000 doing so by putting
benches.
10 benches."
What? So they would
Now,
have to
Devadio,
spend
you're
So they
somewhat
at
of an
least that
expert on.
much to get your.
They would ask, like, "Hey, is it okay if this kid does build bench or trash can holders or whatever to put around the people trail beside the benches?" And the dude was like, "No, because they wouldn't go good with the style of my bench." And I'm like,
Right. So
"Eat a dick."
so Devadio, you're somewhat of an expert on benches, having done your senior project.
Devadio, bench expert.
First
Put
of
that
all,
above his head.
is $50,000 a reasonable estimate for installing benches? And do you think you could make trash can holders in the style of benches?
They're metal benches, and an architect was hired professionally to do
Well,
it.
so technically, I built like 2 benches. One
Which is
was
2 more
made
than
out of
most people.
completely wood,
Yeah.
which like I stated like anyone can really do that. It was easy. I just Google searched like good bench designs or whatever.
Not everybody
Found
does
like
though.
a blueprint of it, made it. Probably cost me like less than $40 to make. It was a pretty good bench. I spent a lot of time on it.
Right.
I'm proud of it. The only classification I did, because you have to do something like out of your bounds, right, for like the rubric for the whole project. I didn't know how to do concrete casting or whatever, so that's what my mentor did. He worked at Cummins, and he was basically an engineer. So I was like, "Can you help me create a bench and stuff?" And he was like, "Yeah, I've worked with concrete and shit like that."
Okay.
And so that's what I did. I had to put in rebar, lay concrete casts in it for like I think a week or 2
Wow.
for like each side, and like he was kind enough to let me do it in front of his yard because he was retired and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, because that was the other thing you had to say was what difficulties you
Yeah.
had.
Oh, I
So
recall
that's
that
why I
now,
made
yeah.
2 benches, because like I'm good at woodworking, because that's what I was going to previously do before I changed my whole idea of what I want to do for my future career.
Right.
But yeah,
Again,
Yeah,
I
it
didn't
was
know
pretty
that.
good.
That's actually
It's
really
pretty
interesting.
easy.
That's actually a really difficult bench to make.
but if
It
I would
sounds
have
like.
to
Make
like,
to sound like.
guess, knowing mill race, they probably would have done like nice metal benches.
Well, sure.
I mean, you've
Let
seen
it-
them around. They're like the
$50,000
memorial.
let
on
it
them.
let it be
Yeah.
known. I did a
Benches.
quick math equation. $50,000, approximately
nerd or
$40 a bench. That's over 1,200 benches. Even accounting for labor costs, they could have made several hundred benches for that amount of money.
Yeah.
That's our tax
know.
dollars at work, gentlemen. I don't know if we want to
feel like
dive into that.
that's-
We don't want to
No.
dive into that
Are you fucking
topic.
kidding me?
I think that's more like bureaucratic.
I'm not saying that. No, I'm
No,
bro. No, why?
Why?
He's
What are you
trying
pissed
to-
about?
Tell you why.
Quit trying to throw it to politics.
You know what? I think
We're not-
politics
well,
are.
this is
amazing
interesting
things.
banter,
I'll
fellas.
drop kick the camera.
Please don't.
Well,
Do it
This
for a
is-
bit.
Yeah, what happened to
Right
lighthearted,
now,
Nick? You're
currently,
getting a
no,
little bit.
this is
2020,
fucking
the year
pissed
of our
off
Lord.
banter.
I want to believe
And
that this
elections
is
year.
an ironic.
An ironic rage.
Yeah.
Nick Tungate does not make that clear all the time.
What the fuck are you trying to say?
I'm
No.
just trying to say that you.
No, I didn't mean
That's not
ironic
ironic.
rage. I
This-
meant
What'd you say?
we need to create.
I want to watch.
I would love to interact with some of you guys and create some sort of like jingle or something anytime that we mention lighthearted banter or like the banter's going on. We can just sound off
Like what?
with
No,
with
that,
our.
that seems kind of dumb.
Just go, ooh, mama jeans.
I haven't heard
intro music.
Yeah, that's
single
something else
gayest
too. I was
idea in my life.
well.
Other than that,
That's a little bit homophobic. Not that homes
I'm
are
not
bad or
afraid
anything.
of
I live in an
homes.
apartment,
I
but homes
live in
are
a
great.
home. I have a doormat that says "Welcome home." I
Really?
love home.
You love homes. That's actually great. I had taken a note earlier. This is a great segue. I had taken a note earlier about another talking point that we may have.
What's up?
I was thinking that it may be really interesting to talk about what kind of dream houses or things that we may want in a house that we own in the future.
Oh, I talk about this all the time.
I think it'd be really guillotine, torture weapons, and a
No, I got those.
chamber. Oh,
Guillotine.
It's guillotine.
My man.
My man.
All right, Nick.
So-
Nick
so-
doesn't want to talk.
Homemade.
So here's
Homemade
my dream.
guillotine.
go ahead, Devadio. Or unless you gotta talk.
Cobblestone basement.
Okay, Devio, go ahead.
you want a
Shackles
castle.
to it. I wasn't done talking, so go ahead, Nick. Thank you.
You want a moat then, right?
No. I just want it like a German
To keep the Black
torture
Knight out?
dungeon.
You have a moat in your house?
Like a basic model home, but then underneath
Like in your
is
dream, what you were
medieval.
trapped in with that midget, that's what I want.
He was
I don't think
jacked
we can
as
say
Wow, that was call back
I don't
to
think
it.
that's a
Excellent.
Did I tell you
That-
about that
no.
dream?
That dream. Oh,
Should I
okay.
bring that up?
You shouldn't,
Let's-
you shouldn't say midget.
do we
You should
wanna-
say
I kind of want to talk about
fear
the
little
house.
anchors
person.
like people.
I think
The people
if we
with
may-
the hands.
I need some sort of like.
people with the
You need like
Yeah,
a cattle
but
prod.
I need-
like stab
I
everybody.
need something to like gather attention again.
cattle prod
to
A gavel?
I need
Just
like a
have an
gavel.
air
judge.
Ejaculate violently.
I'm gonna have an air horn. Next
honestly-
podcast, I'm having an air horn.
That's a technical.
No, you need a gavel. Because
Oh, shit.
I'm just gonna.
just
Just have the blammy.
we got so many people here. We
All
got
right,
multiple
boys.
conversations
Okay.
going on.
Here's what I'd say. I think the dream would be very interesting to bring up. We started talking about the houses. Would we rather tell the dream first, then
I
talk
want to
about
hear
the
about
houses? or-
Devadio's dream
Let's
house.
hear about
Yeah,
Devadio's
actually,
dream
the
house.
house
Seems
is
like
a
he
good
knows.
motion.
I think
yeah.
it's a really interesting
Well, I
idea.
talk about this all the time with people because, like, I feel like it's interesting hearing people's perspective on like houses they would love to live in.
Yeah.
Because, like, I think that really talks about a person's like whole ideals in a way.
Oh,
you
found a
know
deer
what I mean?
tick.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
you have people that prefer city or country life and shit like that.
Yeah.
It just talked about what they're looking forward to in the
Yeah.
future, or
Yeah.
what they think they can accomplish.
Yeah.
So let's start off with
So-
Devadio. Go ahead and start off. Would it be in the city, in the country? What kind of setting
So
do you
what,
think it'd
what
be
I've
in?
always kind of wanted personally was like I kind of like how your place is, like your grandparents' place,
Yeah.
I should say.
I was
it's
raised,
out
yeah.
in the country, like a few acres of land, but like near the city enough where it's not much of a hassle to get like
Absolutely,
groceries
yeah.
and supplies.
My house is 15 minutes from the downtown section of
Yeah.
our town and 20 minutes from everywhere. So it's actually great
And
like for that kind of thing.
just like nice country house out there near the city, 2 stories with a nice fair-sized basement,
You
you know.
want to
Mhm.
vote?
To keep the gators out, yeah. But
What do you live in Florida?
maybe.
Oh,
That's actually another interesting bit we could throw in because I personally, I mean, we live in Indiana. I think we've all lived in Indiana our whole lives. I've always had this kind of fantasy of living on the West Coast or somewhere up in like, primarily Oregon or Northern California has always just been a fantastic, ideal place for me to live. I doubt it's ever going to happen, but I don't know if you have any other specifics on where in the country your dream house might be as well. That might be something to throw in, but anyway, you can continue. I just wanted to throw that out there.
I like the Midwest. I think it's a pretty nice place.
Sure.
Everyone's somewhat nice.
Yeah.
You know? No
I
one's
mean-
like really a stick in their ass like over on the west or east side,
Sure.
where they're just kind of
there's
full of
people like that
themselves a little
everywhere,
bit.
but
And that's what I was
know,
gonna
but I feel
say.
like
Every
for
area's
some
got its
reason,
problems.
There's like an amalgamation. Sorry.
No,
Of like-
throw it out.
Of like people living on
5,
like
8,
the
9,
coast
16,
cities for some reason they
7,
feel like they're
16.
better than other people.
Mm.
I don't know.
I
I
might.
get that
I've,
perspective, but also might be
Yeah,
like
just in case
stereotyping
comments
at the same time.
you might be, but I
Because
think
I've
I've
never
gotten
met
that vibe
anyone on the
before.
West
I've
Coast.
never traveled very much, but I certainly do think there's because you think of like New York and then the Northeast and like
I'm
the
not
same in
trying to go to New York
California.
right now.
New York is
no.
swamped with coronavirus
2020,
currently.
the year of our Lord, coronavirus is a thing.
Year of our Lord.
But I do think there's certainly a bit of a there's a different energy living in those areas because they're so much more urbanized, and that's probably the number one factor. And for whatever reasons you may want to get into urbanization, it changes the way that people act.
Yeah.
Living in the what up, bud? Blam. Living in the Midwest, there's a lot more space. People are a little bit more secluded, I'd say,
There's a lot
but also
more
maybe
Dollar Generals.
there are a lot.
They're essential.
They're essential. Were you pretty much finished with what you were saying about it? Because we kind of got off from what you were saying about your house there for a moment.
Not really.
Okay.
I feel like
I bet you could
I feel
go
like
into
most
it quite a bit.
conversations are like natural, where you'll say one idea and then people will transition to another talking point.
I was just trying to make sure that you got out your points while we were on the topic just a
I was
little bit
thinking
ago
when
because
we were talking about like where, I was thinking I would always want to try and go to Colorado. Because
Colorado.
I like skiing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I like going to Perfect North.
Perfect
But
North
then
Slopes.
also-
Please sponsor.
My brother, who has been there, told me that in the winter when it's real snowy, it's skiing, but then in the summer, it's skateboarding.
It's land
Really?
boarding. Land
Like
skiing.
longboarding or
hill skiing.
hill skiing. You're gonna have to explain that or something because you're not speaking my
That
language.
kind of
What do you mean?
Hill skiing? Are
Are
you
you talking about when
You get the
Nick
blammy?
is trying to...
are you actually saying this is
connect?
skateboarding or is it like
No, it's
longboarding
actual
in the
skateboarding.
hills? Okay,
It's skateboarding.
Okay.
They have skate parks.
all over the place. In
Yeah,
Colorado.
because, I mean, it's not
Nick,
Get
the
two
winter time when all
greased
the
up
snow is
rednecks
everywhere.
and you stand
That sounds
on
fantastic.
But those are two things I love to do. And
Colorado-
if I could go somewhere where it's... You can always be doing one or the other.
It just so
depending on the
happens we've
season.
had someone who went to Colorado for a summer and got fucked over.
Yeah, that's an
it's-
interesting story as
Shout
well.
out, Grandpa.
Wouldn't say that, but I spent the summer with him, but I desperately needed money for college, which I did not acquire during that time I was there.
Right. Do I recall that you tried to do prospecting
Yeah,
at some points?
I prospected, and we actually found gold, but it takes like
What?
You have to, yeah, no,
Yeah.
like flakes on flakes,
So
like
there's
the
gold in the
tiniest.
hills?
You went there to
Then gold?
mine for gold?
I paying for
Paying
gold. Yeah.
for gold?
Paying for gold. Yeah, like sitting in a river, like shaking sand
Ass
out of
deep.
water. Yeah,
Which is so cool
You were
to me.
doing
Water?
that to get money
Toes in
for
the sand?
college?
yeah, yeah.
Well, it didn't work, is what he's saying, which is
you have to do
that's so crazy.
You had to do it like every day for like a month to get like any
To
amount
get a
of money.
dollar
Get the
worth
mama
of gold.
No, not
Right,
not
because
like
gold comes in such minuscule amounts.
Yeah,
because people have been
exactly.
mining for gold there for hundreds of years now, probably.
that. Yeah, exactly.
At least,
Well,
decades.
See, that's
know
a
that.
that's
Isn't
a
yeah?
that's a misconception too, really, because gold is always
Get
like
away,
flowing,
you
like
baby.
the river's always flowing and it's
Uh-huh.
always turning over new shit.
Okay.
So gold's always there, just when it
You
when
could
it,
show up
you know,
at a bad day when it's already gone
yeah,
down river.
yeah. You could show up on a day where
Okay.
there's no gold anywhere, or you could show
We
up.
just camp on the river.
'Cause
and
I
build
was-
like a mesh net.
Yeah,
I guess
that's-
that makes more sense. I was
Yeah.
just I was under the impression
Nick,
that
you need
there
to
was
go
only a
there.
finite amount of gold in the
Yeah.
hills
Just
or the
do it.
mountains.
No, it's yeah, it's out there still. But that's why it takes like a month of like
You're a
straight doing
welder.
it every
I build
day.
decent
Right.
engines, we can
Because
survive.
some days it's good, some days it's bad.
They love their diesel
I mean, when
engines
it
out in Colorado.
when it rains, it doesn't even sound like it pours though for you. It
No.
just did not.
No, dude. I
No,
mean,
when
Would you,
rains.
having spent the summer in Colorado, would you consider it a good place to live? Did you like the area
that was
you were
beautiful.
in?
It was beautiful.
Beautiful?
Yeah. The second, like if you move there though, like, okay, so when my second day there, my grandfather asked me to cut down a tree in his front yard because it was killing some flowers of his.
Ah, that damn
trees.
tree.
I cut this tree down with. It was like a little tree. It wasn't like a mighty oak or anything like that.
It was,
It was a redwood.
3
It
feet
was a
around,
redwood.
It was
Yeah.
a redwood.
100 feet tall.
exactly.
Diameter of this tree was the length of a human.
Yeah, it was a big old tree.
Yeah, I knocked it out in like 30 seconds. But no,
Minecraft style.
it was
Punched it.
no, it was a
Abe Lincoln.
little tree,
Abe Lincoln.
and I cut it down with a bow saw, and I passed out.
Is that one of the
like
really big
5
ones that you...
Yes.
Yeah, like it's
Wait,
like,
so
like
how
a,
are you...
It has a metal bark that like.
Yeah, and it's like a really jagged, like sharp toothed.
Right.
And it
Okay.
takes a while.
Yeah,
Well, I thought a bow saw
30
was a
seconds.
two-person saw. Is
No,
it
that's
one-
a two-person saw.
Okay.
it's a.
Wait.
No, well,
No, like that's what like
That's what a bow saw is.
no.
You're confusing me. A two-person saw is what it's called.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't actually know that.
Yeah.
I've used them before
I'm
and never
pretty
known
sure.
what they're called.
yeah,
But a
it's
bow saw
yeah.
is
It's
something
It's just
different.
like a.
It's
It's
a-
like there's
if
a
you-
foam grip.
on good ones. Yeah.
Oh, good one.
This
His
one did
grandpa
not
didn't
have-
The shit ones have that little metal. The shit ones have that like metal clamp that holds the
No,
blade
no,
tight.
this one had like like in your steering wheel, how there's like bumps in the back. There was
They're
that.
just rigid.
There was ridges.
My steering
yeah,
wheel's
on the bow saw.
smooth. It's
Wouldn't that make it better,
Italian
though?
leather.
To hold on to?
2013
It was
Malibu.
painful, dude. It made it good to hold on to. It was just fucking
But after
painful.
a while, it's just
Yeah.
working away at your hands.
Exactly.
Right.
I've never used one,
Yeah.
so.
I've used a fair amount of tools to that like that. Living where I did with my grandparents, we had 20 acres of land. Well, they currently have 20 acres of land. I don't live there full time anymore. 20 acres, and as you can imagine, that requires at least a decent amount of care. Cutting down trees that are dead or in the way, or mowing and things of that nature. A lot of yard work, and Devadio is sensually eating a chocolate bar across the way. So fucking.
Oh God, it's.
And a lot of them,
You're like, I got the mama.
a lot of them people might have a misconception of
You're acting
how
like
easy
Brandon
or
right
hard
now.
they are to use.
Got a little chocolate
Chainsaws
on
exist
your tongue,
because
boy.
handsaws are just a colossal pain in the dick, quite frankly, to use. You can't get anywhere.
I would say in the hand, pain in the hand.
It's a pain in the hand.
Oh, and also in the shoulder with that motion
God,
back
dude.
and forth.
Dude, surprisingly, it's more wrist than shoulder. Just because you're putting a lot of,
You know
like,
from
tension
experience, Nick?
right here.
Yeah, shut up.
Yeah,
How long did it actually take you to cut it down?
It took me like 10 minutes of like constant sawing at it. I
Oh,
also
so
kind of
you-
sucked it. Yeah, sawing it down. Anyway, the point of the story is I got there and I passed out after I cut it down.
Oh, right.
Because you're a mile closer to the sun, so
Oh.
the
I
altitude
didn't even think about the altitude.
and the
Altitude.
sun shining on me.
And there's also a lack of
That's
oxygen.
like-
The
It's a
oxygen
mile
is that
from the
much.
sun.
Wait,
It's
wait.
like,
Was that like the first
Bruce
day
Lee
you
or
were
something.
there? You weren't like
It was
climatized?
Yeah,
to
I
it
wasn't.
yet?
Yeah, I wasn't acclimated. Yeah,
Or acclimated.
yeah,
Acclimatized.
That's actually because
I'm
it's also
making
the level of oxygen because
Yeah, yeah.
it's in less density
you ever seen that
up
Podbean
that high.
episode?
That's why you
Don't
see
talk
NFL
about
players
flat.
or other athletes.
They're
They're on the
There's a
sidelines
part
with
where
masks.
him and Canucks
Which is
are
really
climbing up
interesting
a
because,
mountain,
and this is not
but
going
it's,
to
like,
turn into a
snowy,
full-fledged
right?
thing, but I
And
think
they're
it's so
like-
interesting that some
He's just taking
people
shots of them.
claim that there are
Look how close the sun is to the
different
mountains.
advantages
The
to
higher
living
we
at
go,
higher or
the
lower
warmer it's gonna get,
altitudes
'cause we're getting
because
closer to the
you
sun.
think of some of
And
the
at the end of the
best
episode, it
marathon
just
runners in the
frozen.
world.
Got those.
A lot of marathon runners
Why
that
are
are
they stopping?
elite come from Kenya, and Kenya as a country is much higher elevated than the rest of Africa and a lot of other places, and it changes your body's ability to take in oxygen and use it efficiently, really, which is really
Top it
interesting.
off, you're not a real doctor. I've never
Well-
seen a softer author.
Yeah, I'm not a real doctor, so everything I just said is completely false, I guess. But no, I actually think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And you experienced that firsthand.
Oh,
That's
God.
that's remarkable.
Yeah, it sucked, dude.
Oh
Like,
man,
I remember I just like laid down and I was like, oh, this is it.
So this is it.
this is it.
This is how I die.
I think this
Coming.
is out of juice.
Whatever's there.
Yeah.
You know, we all come from the you know the thing.
The Earth?
No,
Stork?
Joe
Yeah.
Biden reference.
You know
Can you just put the flame thing in
Yeah, you peel that up
and then
Oh, I got you.
and you
I can
squirt
do
the cock.
because it's out.
it. Do you have the lighter fluid?
It's right next to it.
Toss me the
Nope.
so
Blame.
so Nick, would you care to explain some of the details, maybe fantastic or not, of what your ideal house might actually be? I think you have some interesting points to say about that.
So, I want it made out of strict mahogany wood. Nothing. No, I'm kidding. I just want a huge piece of property.
Sure.
I'd like to buy a huge piece of land for vastly cheap.
Of course.
Preferably someplace in like Montana.
Is
2 acres?
this legitimately Montana?
This is legitimate.
Okay, cool.
I would love to live in like Montana, like the plains of like.
Do you like the
I just like
isolation
nature.
or like the
just
nature?
It has nothing to do with being isolated. I'd love to be out in the country
Okay,
just because I can do whatever the hell I want.
fair, completely respectable.
But I would like a full size basement. I would like a full attic.
What
I would
about
like- I want a big pool barn and then a big
That's what I was about to
regular
say.
barn. Pool barn to work on cars and whatever projects I have. And then an actual barn.
Right.
And as time goes by, I saw this in the latest Rambo movie. This is legit. I thought this would be cool.
what?
To have a series of tunnels connecting all those
Oh,
buildings.
right. That'd actually
Okay.
be incredibly cool.
But I mean, that's legit.
It's
I
like
would
that
love
King
to
of the
do
Hill
that.
episode.
Why do you keep bringing up King of the Hill?
But
It's the first
I've
time
done
I've heard
all
him
day.
bring up King of the
another
Hill
thing
today.
I would like to do
I gotta
is like
watch
in
it.
the back part of it, have it be very wooded with like a huge lake.
Oh my goodness.
And have that be like a camping spot type deal.
I'm so privileged to say that I lived in a property that had that type of thing. To go out and have the ability to be in the woods, completely away from everybody. You could yell and scream and have almost nobody to worry about hearing you, and it's actually incredible. I completely understand where you're coming from with that.
So basically, he builds a tunnel. Like
That's basically a segue to me to say my ideal property or house is somewhat like the property I was raised on growing up. Because this property, again, it is 20 acres, and the way that it was set up, it used to be owned by a farmer, and he only farmed one part of it. The rest of the land was just kind of
He
woods.
went crazy in the pig
because it's
thing.
hard.
And well, he did have a ton of pigs, and he did not take care of them.
and shit.
That's actually so where
Started eating each other.
where the nearest shed. It's a shed in my property. The one that funny enough, I actually ran into and almost toppled one time, which is a completely different point I may bring up in a moment. I really did, but that shed was pig and held sheeps. And that shed, if you ever go into it, you guys may have been in there before, it has a different type of soil because it's mixed in with the manure from those animals living there for years and years. But this property, 20 acres, and it's got 2 really big fields, and it's got a couple creeks, and it is everything that I ever wanted in a place. And it was fantastic to go out into the middle of the woods and be able to set up a fire and cook hot dogs and sit and just be with nature. I've had you guys out a couple of times for different bonfires and things, and you've only been to, I mean, you've seen the whole property, right?
Yeah,
But and we only had the bonfire in a certain part, but it really is, quite frankly, it's awesome.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think you're like Nick's talked about it multiple times. He said that straight up, like, yeah,
Like legit, if a
really
family
he
were
loves-
to sell that
There's a
property,
few episodes that are
I would want to be the first people that they would talk to
But
about
overall,
buying.
it's
Even
like
if it took me like 10
fun.
years to buy it
Very,
from them,
like,
I would love to have
situationally
that property.
I would
Honestly,
absolutely
I think
adore
I
to
would
own the
like it.
property
I would
myself.
Just
remodel
because
the
I
house
know
in the same
whenever I
shape,
was
but make it
younger, I'd
more
be like,
modernized.
this
Can you hear me
makes
pretty
sense,
well?
but
I can't hear you so well. They're
That's
talking a
why
little
I
bit
love-
loud to hear
I was like,
you.
this show is just kind of
That's
boring.
yeah,
probably
like
no
you
one's
get
doing
older,
it.
your idea. Of,
I might be able to zoom and
This is
enhance
a
that kind of
cartoon.
thing.
I'm expecting cartoon shit. But there's some moments where it's so over the top. You're like, okay, this is really funny because
Yeah,
you
I
can
would
see
love
that
to buy
happen
that
in
property.
real life.
Wouldn't it be awesome? My only qualm is having lived in that house for so
Qualm?
long. It's an old house. They
word.
Good country.
That's what I'm saying. Like remodel, like
Mhm.
tear
Oh,
it down, not necessarily tear it down, but
because-
keep the shape.
what my
Because-
grandparents did when they bought the property was the I mentioned the old farmer that had it.
Brought
This
in
poor
termites.
man. This poor man was basically senile at the time he was selling the property. I don't know the details.
Moving into like old folks.
I don't actually know. I don't know if he was moving in with a different family member or if he was getting old, so he had to be put in a home. But he was too old to take care of the property, and it was overrun with weeds, and there were buildings almost collapsing, and his animals weren't being fed. And so my grandparents, it was about 25 years ago. I think they bought it in the mid-90s. They bought it for very, very cheap. And the only reason they even found the place, which I thought was so interesting, they just happened to be driving by because they worked for the county surveyor's office at the time. They would literally go and survey different plots of land to plan out roads and things of that nature. And they saw up in weeds up to your chest a for sale sign half hidden. And so they braked really quickly, backed up, and they saw the sign, and they're like, well, wow, that's awesome. And they wound up buying it. But whenever they did, they tore down his property and used the foundation to build up this new house. And they built it themselves, but they built it. It wasn't professionally built by any stretch. And being over 20 years old now.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, it's actually really impressive. There are tons of pictures of them, because what they would do was they had a trailer that they pulled up and parked next to the house, and
They
for
could live in that
3
while
or 4
they're building
years
the
they
house.
lived in that trailer and built this house.
Is that the trailer that's in the back?
That's the trailer that's in the back.
We shoot with arrows every time we
Oh.
leave.
Yeah, it has been stripped down to its bare components. It has been rotting and the home of mice and snakes for years now.
And
But they
that-
lived there
And that's
while
the
they built
move,
the house.
though. Honestly, though, buy a big piece of land for dirt fucking cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Build the house yourself, because even though it looks complicated, it's not that complicated to build a house. You just got to make sure you have. It's not.
I've played a lot of Minecraft. I can make a house or two. I mean,
This man
It's
knows
not-
about
I'm-
Minecraft.
This
I'm
man-
talking-
Making calculators.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Got a phone call. 1 second.
we could certainly. Okay, so everyone's kind of been up and around. We could take a break and come back to the podcast, or we could try to wrap up our discussions here.
Well, how long have we been going for?
We've been going for 45 minutes, which
We can
is
keep going.
certainly, yeah, we could keep going. It's just be okay. Well, 4 of us are back.
long
We can
as we
continue
can-
with 4.
Stay on top.
Well, we've been doing a decent job, I think. We've had side conversations and things, but it's lighthearted banter.
Yeah.
You know,
No, I think it's actually a really good soundtrack for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kinda, I like to think of it that way.
literally,
like-
us just bickering and having different banterings on the side. Yeah, I actually
That's
really
why I
like
like
that.
the idea of the gavel. So we're like, oh.
And then
get
just
back
like-
up, but then get back
Yeah.
into other.
Yeah.
I might look into getting a gavel or something then, because I do think that'd be really interesting. So last I left off, I was talking about my house and the actual dream house that I would have. And this is literal and actual dream, a fantasy. I doubt it could ever be this cool. But I would have a house with multiple bedrooms, a living room or an entertainment room that is big enough to have a lot of people over, for whether it be to watch a football game or to enjoy Smash Brothers on the big TV or whatever it may be. I want to have a projector screen or something to that effect for everybody to be involved in whatever is going on, stream movies or whatever. I think that's something awesome to have. And then it would also be ideally decently big, maybe 2 stories and with a basement, because growing up I was always jealous of kids with basements. I don't know if you guys have similar feelings.
Basements are great.
Basements are
I wasn't jealous
awesome.
of basements necessarily.
You weren't?
Jealous of having a good family.
It's just like having that
I was gonna say having
area.
2-parent households.
Okay, well.
I was jealous of living with my parents.
Oh. Dang it.
I certainly, I mean, back to the seriousness, like, would you guys say that having a basement is a cool thing? Because I always thought it was the coolest thing.
Yeah.
I only had one house with a basement, dude, and it was fucking badass. I'd go down there and ride my scooter around on the concrete.
Really?
And then
You could
a
have been
shelf
learning how
broke.
to do kickflips.
The shelf broke, and my mom thought I broke it, and she came down and beat my ass in front of my friends.
Well,
And the shelf was like rotting wood. And she's like, I know you were jumping on it. I'm like, Mom, I'm not even near it. And she whipped my ass with the belt in front of my friends. Pretty
Well,
cool, huh?
that's a real sad story, but the cool part was that you had a basement.
Back to the topic on hand.
wait, what were you even talking about?
We were talking about-
for a second.
We were talking about dream houses still, and I touched on my dream house, and then we started talking about basements just very briefly.
My dream house would have to have a basement.
I think so. I think
Either a basement or at least an upstairs.
With an ass.
Just having
an attic would be
You have
nice.
You have 4 floors.
8
Basement, main
floors.
floor, upstairs, attic.
That was
And
kind of
then
cool, Nick. We
above
raised our
the
hands
attic-
in sync with each story.
And then
that
you have
just
another
mentioned.
basement because you have another house starting on top of you.
it is Minecraft.
You're a house tower.
You are a
basement
house
and then an
tower.
Upper basement and or just the ground floor.
Upper basement.
Can I have a basement 2? It is the deeper basement below my basement.
That's just called catacomb.
That's just where Nick has his torture dungeons.
Where he keeps all his hands.
I want to have like in.
What if butter spreads you?
Have you guys seen? Has everyone here seen Parasite?
No.
Has anyone here? You haven't seen Parasite? Have you seen Parasite?
You seen Dreamcast?
You've seen Parasite, right, Devadio?
I still haven't seen it.
So,
it got tons of
Without revealing
parameters.
much of Parasite, there is a very rich family and a very poor family, and the very poor family goes to work for the rich family through various methods. And the rich family has this humongous house, with a basement
Humongous?
and a secret bunker underneath that the actual owners don't know of. And that kind of thing would actually be pretty cool to have in a house.
Didn't
Low
they
key,
say they
I-
built that
I-
because of the Korean War that was going
Yes,
on
yes.
at the time?
Low key, I would
that's
like
actually
to have
true.
a
A lot
bunker,
of
though. I think a bunker would be good at, like, not necessarily under my house, but like off in the distance of my
yeah,
property.
and not
that I could
necessarily
get to
because
on like a gator, you know.
I would say not necessarily because any of us are
That
doomsday.
can withstand nuclear war for when we go to war with China.
Or when the zombies
He
come.
said when.
I mean,
can't-
I
This
like my
virus
man
sucks, dude. I
Wesley.
wanted zombies, bro. I'm not joking. I was ready.
You sound like Wyatt.
Were you in your? Never mind.
Yeah, I was
Uh,
ready in my studio apartment.
with your
With my
katanas
katana?
and blammy?
I'll be like that one chick from Walking
Blammy.
Dead.
If you say the word blammy, I will laugh, probably.
I'll say it a couple more times.
Thank
You remember
God.
that one dude you
I wish
worked
you
with,
had your.
Opie? But he,
I wish I had your guitar here so I could just strum it.
you just add in the sound from last video.
Vroom.
No, from last,
can't wait
you
to
add in
No,
the
yeah,
sound
I'm
from
gonna like use that as a marker for me to do that.
We're gonna be
doing after 2 hours.
All right. Does anybody else have anything to say about houses or anything?
I'm not a homophobe.
Okay.
No. But you
That's
did,
fair.
You
Welcome
did say
home.
you did say something about a
Well, you
movie.
did say you were
And,
bisexual.
Oh, right.
I did not say that.
Recently, I started a new. Well, I don't know if I'd call it a crush, but I'm completely in love with Florence Pugh.
Florence Pugh.
I have to admit this. Yeah.
You're gonna have
Sounds
to.
stinky.
Who is Florence Pugh?
Uh-oh. Stinky.
She's okay. Have you guys seen Little Women?
No.
Wait,
I've heard it's a good movie.
I've
I
heard
think
it's
I know who
phenomenal.
She's
you're
the
talking
blonde
about.
girl. She's the blonde girl.
The one. This is with Emma Watson, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
recent one.
Yeah, the really recent one.
I've heard phenomenal things about it, especially from my little sister who has watched it. I have
Yeah.
not seen it though.
I watched
refuse to watch
it. I watched it and I was like,
Dude,
this
I'll watch
girl,
it if she's paying it.
dude, I think she is. She's
I believe you.
Wait, is she above 300 pounds?
no, sadly,
That's
she's
very
like
How are you
interesting.
attracted to her? That makes
Is
no
she-
fucking sense.
Dude,
An 8 or a 9.
have you guys watched
I don't want to say
On the Richter
American
scale.
wanna
Horror
say-
Story?
I don't want to
I
like
thought that
hype
was
it
clever.
up because like the girls
Then
I
I'll
like
watch
are,
it and be like,
Can we backtrack for a second?
What?
Wesley said I thought she was going to be an 8 or a 9, and I said on a Richter scale, which I thought was really funny
just throwing it out.
because Brandon likes really fat women. I
do.
thought that was phenomenally
I do like
funny.
really
Like,
fat
okay,
Yeah,
I got to laugh.
she's not-
Moving
okay,
forward.
you know what? Here you go.
Thank you. I got a handshake from it. I got to laugh.
yeah,
Moving. Let's move forward.
yeah. But no, I watched this movie called Lady Macbeth just because she was in it. Movie is kind of
But you get to see
That means
her.
it's
I got
awful.
to, I was like,
But
yeah.
you liked it
But
because of her.
is she a good actor or just pretty face?
She's a really good actor. I think she is. She's really good at accents.
That's fair.
I think I know who you're
Like Meryl
talking
Streep.
about.
She's British, but she's
Wasn't, what's his face?
Storms are brewing.
Daniel Radcliffe.
Damn.
Daniel Radcliffe. Trevor
No.
Lawrence. Martin Lawrence.
Eric Andre.
Well, no.
Robin Williams.
He's
rest
the
in
white
peace.
guy.
Oh,
with
then
black
you're definitely
hair,
talking about Daniel Radcliffe.
chiseled features.
Orlando
James-
Bloom.
He's kind of
McAvoy.
young.
Tom Holland.
Wait, what movie was he in?
What are you
Hey,
talking?
did you
Do
hear
you
about
know
that
who I'm
actress that got
talking
stabbed?
about?
No.
Reese,
I can't remember.
Witherspoon.
No, with a
So I
knife.
was trying to make he's like, girls like,
No, you told that joke. He told that joke earlier to me. Went over my head.
Didn't get it.
I didn't get it.
All right.
I said I don't. What did I make? Everyone else started laughing. I felt so dumb afterwards because it's a clever little joke.
Oh, that's a good one.
because I
Yeah.
feel like,
But,
because I
That's
feel
one of them
like
blue
Gerald's
collar
story
jokes.
has a
We should do a podcast on nothing
All
but
blue collar
all blue
comedy.
collar
We
comedy.
We should absolutely. You two would lead the way on that one.
lead the charge.
I'm pretty much. I don't know.
Yeah,
If I'm not blue collar for sure.
So,
But I work as a stalker at Target. I mean, that's not
so, like,
exactly
basically, like,
So,
on a factory floor.
You know, a
Yeah, I
slice
got
of
the
American
DLCs,
pie.
but
Not
then,
American pie. Plug the movie. A slice of apple pie in Jamaica costs $2.50.
yeah.
You know, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't get
Costs
it.
$3 in
Dope.
Jamaica. Not
Like,
Jamaica.
I
But they're
thought-
putting it out in parts.
That's really hard to.
They're gonna have
No,
multiple,
dude, they're just the
parts.
Pirates
But
of Caribbean.
It's like
He held up the picture of Jack Sparrow again. He did that to me the
We were
other
driving
day.
out here. I said, dude, they're just the
Doing
Pirates of
really well.
Caribbean.
This is still like
prolonging
full
it.
retail price.
What are you guys over
I would
there
totally buy it
chittering
for
about?
$60 the first one, but it's not even the full story.
That's
Bro,
wonderful to hear.
They're
Thank you for
coming out
sharing.
with
I
the
am
new Assassin's
sorry.
Creed game.
We keep
No,
getting-
I'm curious. I want to hear what you're talking about. It sounds like something interesting.
Well, we were talking about
We were talking
what
about
is
The
that
Witcher.
game? The Witcher.
Oh,
and
so
how
that's
I
not
still
interesting.
haven't beat
Anyway,
it. But then I said I was playing Final Fantasy VII Remake
I've
and
never
how they're
played.
putting it out in parts.
Are you
And some
serious?
people are kind of put off by that.
I'd be put
But
off by that
the
actually.
first one they put out, they put it out for $60, but I think it was totally worth it. And if they put out multiple ones, I'm still gonna buy them.
Yeah.
If
So-
they're like the first one at least.
I do not know anything about Final Fantasy except that it's Final Fantasy VII is touted as a phenomenal game, right?
Well,
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VII is what basically made JRPGs like popular in American
Okay.
society.
That was one of
And
the
it was
best
one of the first
PlayStation
games to
games
ever
that I've ever
include, like,
played.
Did you played it?
I'm very interested in
Oh,
playing
you
it,
played
but
all
I've
one.
never
Me and my
been
brother did
exposed to
multiple
it.
times.
It's I
I
watched
never
okay.
played the first one.
I watched a
just
Donkey
played this
video,
one.
so I'm basically a professional.
Video game donkey.
Yeah. No, I'm just
Hold
kidding.
up.
No, he talked about how it's vastly different from the original. Have you played the original?
I never played,
played
the,
the
original. You played the
I
original?
think I still
It's
should.
not going to be turn-based, right?
No, it's not turn-based.
It's
like
kinda-
Kingdom
they
Hearts
changed- they
esque.
changed
So
it
it's
up,
like
yeah.
a redesign more than a remake. It sounds like.
They were just trying to
Reimagined.
flesh it out a lot
Reimagined.
more than the original one because that's
Yeah.
what they imagine people like,
'Cause
and they did like it.
The original one
And I
was
do like
very. I mean, it was limited because it was on an older
Yeah,
system,
but
but
it
it was
still
still
did so
phenomenal
well.
for its time,
And
right?
people love it, yeah.
Original turn-
I'm very
I
interested in
don't
playing it.
know,
I've
yeah.
heard
I-
great
It
things.
was
I
one
just
of the
Sure,
first
it was
games to have like
perfect.
3D cinematics. That was
interesting.
one of the-
Interesting.
back then. That was like the graphics were like incredible at the time for like the 3D cinematics, and it came on like 2 discs as well.
See, that's something that I
Yeah.
feel
So it's
awful
like-
about because there are so many games like this that I am only experiencing or hearing about for the first times now.
Yeah.
That is
Like
never, for
Spyro.
some reason, I was never exposed to. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people played Spyro. I never
He
even
works at Subway.
know
I
Spyro.
played that on. Like,
Don't look up
PS1.
Spyro
don't
at
know what
Subway.
you're talking about.
Do not look up Spyro at Subway.
Yeah.
Just don't do it.
Yeah, I just wonder. I feel like you just fall under that a lot. Like you've played video games when you were younger. Right?
Yes,
like you played
absolutely.
A lot. I don't know. Like
It's something unique to me because, and it happens to me quite often with a lot of things actually. And this is a bit of a personal topic I may rant about.
Like albums.
It is that's exactly what I was gonna say. It is amazing because each one of my friends at different times have brought up things where I'm like, yeah, I've just never watched that, or I never heard of that album or that musician or anything. And I don't know where along the line I missed out on being exposed to these things. But I didn't know.
Me first in the Gimme Gimme Jar.
Yeah, I didn't.
No, that's a band.
I know. I don't know who they are. I didn't know that the GameCube was a console until I was in high school.
Like, how could they make a console?
Which is it? A console or a
You'll
cube?
make a Game Sphere, dog.
But like that's a legitimate thing. I just had never. Why are you throwing out the fucking pretzels
They're
again?
making me thirsty.
Drink a beer,
We're having a side conversation.
Yeah, they do.
But
Hey, here's the segment. Pick whose conversation you listen to.
something else was I was never exposed to or listened to bands like Queen or Elton John or Led Zeppelin until very, very recently because of my friends. And I don't know if that's something that common for people nowadays to miss out on, or if it was just something that I missed, you know?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things like that. There are enough things like that I think it's more me and Mike growing up than anything else.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily even say that, man. I would just say with the way time changed and what's hot and stuff, things die out and come back into popularity. Just like, I mean, you see a lot now, like a lot of vintage, like, 70s, 80s type stuff is coming back. Like, people are liking Motley Crue. And, when I mentioned earlier, American Horror Story, they did a 1984 series where it was at like a camp.
Right.
And, they just, a lot of more things are going old school, and like retro stuff is coming back, like from the 80s and like the 90s and shit like that. And it's not necessarily that you missed out on things, it's just you probably weren't, you were probably more involved with the popular trend at the time instead of dealing with like what I grew up with where, it was cool to listen to AC/DC and Motley Crue and all that stuff. And I'm 20, so I'm not saying I'm like 50 years old or anything.
Although, if you didn't hear your voice and just listen to some of the things you would talk about, some people might believe that. You kind of have and don't interpret this the wrong way. You've got an old soul. You have a lot of things about you that just kind of screams older person, which I frankly should have picked up on. I was raised by my grandparents. I frankly should have been exposed to these things.
Things that make me an old person. My love for like hard liquors.
True.
My music taste.
Sure.
My ED.
Well done.
Something was gonna.
Yeah, well done. But
that was solid.
that's legitimate for me because my grandparents, the only things like that they ever exposed me to was my grandfather's own music because he is a musician. He almost made it big in the late 60s to 70s, right about when everybody almost made it big. But legitimately, he actually almost got a record deal with a major label in Boston before his managers stole all their equipment, which I think is a fascinating story.
Before he met your grandma.
Way before he met my grandmother.
Just think how much better his life would be.
Disagree.
That's not nice.
Disagree.
Grandpa, if you ever watch this, he didn't mean that.
Am I wrong?
I think
That's a visual joke, you guys. But
he just full ego spread.
I was just gonna say the only things they ever really exposed me to were his music and a small handful of Michael Jackson songs. He makes a lot of like kind of older rock.
Oh, like
kind of
legit his music. Like
literally his music, like
that's
music
kind of
he made.
self-fucking centered, don't you think?
Well, no, he would just like practice and like show me because I was interested while he was practicing.
Oh, I thought you meant like
listen to my album.
This is a song I made. This is all you're gonna listen to.
No, he tried to do lyrics and he was a good singer, but he wasn't
Can't really
the lead singer.
He wasn't no David Lee Roth.
Yeah, it wasn't
no Bob Dylan.
He wasn't any Elton John, even though Elton John didn't write his lyrics either.
He wasn't no Sammy Hagar.
He was a bass player. He played the bass and he played a little guitar, and he's phenomenal at it. My grandfather, it's such an interesting talent. He's one of the people that's able to hear a song on the piano or the guitar, hear it once, maybe twice, and pick up his guitar and play it. Which is a talent.
Very musically inclined.
Very musically inclined. He's pitch perfect, at least almost pitch perfect, and he is just phenomenal at music. It's just something that never quite worked out for him. Which is kind of sad, but I was just gonna say
it's
I missed out on a
timeless,
lot of
too.
things except for
Exactly.
his
And
music,
it's
which
like-
is really interesting.
It doesn't
I wouldn't
sound
even say, like I
anything
said, man, I
nowadays,
wouldn't even say you missed out on
because
things.
it sounds
It's just
like a time
it's
capsule.
the
Popular
easiest way to
trend.
describe it. I never was exposed to things that a lot of people other
I
were.
just feel like a lot of times, like I know I recognize it. Like a lot of times we're like, yo, you know this, and like you're like the one that does, like you're the one person that didn't do it when you were a kid. And I feel
Yeah.
And
like
take that negatively, because he
Because he hates you
Definitely.
for that. It's his least favorite thing about you.
like for example,
No,
when,
I
when
understand.
Logan and I like nut over Luigi's Mansion and stuff like that. Like it's just I don't know why we played Luigi's Mansion when we were young, but we did. You just
Which is
you didn't happen
because I did play games when I was younger. I
Yeah.
played Pokemon Fire Red and Pokemon Platinum at least over 150, 200 hours each.
Yeah.
I played the mess out of handheld Pokemon games when I was growing up, but I never had a GameCube. I didn't have a Wii until after 4 years it had been out.
Yeah.
I had a PlayStation 2, but I'd only play Madden, and I played Star Wars Battlefront 2, which is a
Oh my
phenomenal
God.
game. I love that game.
There was
Right
a
here,
bug in
you and me.
there somewhere,
That's a good game.
and it's gone now.
You probably ate
So
it.
if I eat it,
It's like whenever
Protein, bud.
I ate it.
that's
Yeah,
what I listen to,
no,
like,
that's fine.
Back to your
But
conversation.
Star Wars Battlefront 2, at least up to this point, besides Lego Star Wars, is my favorite Star Wars game ever. And it is timeless. Because
all that
Logan
shit.
Abbott and
I'm
I
thinking,
just
like, okay,
this
technically
last
these
winter
guys are
got on my PlayStation 2, dusted
my
off my
God.
PlayStation 2, and
Dude.
started up Battlefront 2, which is
That's
just
basically
phenomenal.
what punk music
It's
was
an
at the
awesome,
time.
awesome game.
Was
Do you remember what I would do was
pre-made,
I would
raw.
get on and you'd be able to choose maps that you could just cycle through.
Yeah.
And on some of the maps you would choose the good guys, the CIS, or the bad guys, the Sith,
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
And if you did well enough, you get to play as a certain Jedi or Sith for that location. And I would get as that guy, and as long as you didn't, as long as you killed people, your health would stay up. And I would just destroy, and I would wreck, and I would feel such a satisfaction. That's my favorite game almost growing up.
Well, you're also really good at Wii bowling too.
You're right, I'm phenomenal at Wii bowling.
Because it's like there's
That,
punk in the
I
post-punk.
before we venture off from Star Wars Battlefront 2, I just want to say that was
we're gonna
like
have
the campaign
Yeah.
of that game ridiculously hard.
Oh my god,
Just
it's crazy
incredible.
hard. I spent
Incredibly
so many hours, and it wasn't until a couple years later I went back and finally beat one of the levels.
Yeah.
I remember literally trying for months to beat one of the levels and just gave up.
Yeah.
And I would just do like I said. But now as an adult, I don't remember if I completed it. I don't remember do you remember the end? Did you complete it?
I've completed.
'Cause I don't remember-
I could not tell you the end.
I remember that I got past that one point and did a couple others, and I was so content that I wrapped it up.
Yeah.
But it is incredibly hard, and you were just wasting all those pretzels. It's a little sad. They could be going in my mouth.
I thought it was.
It's funny enough with Breath of the Wild, much more recent game. I did a similar thing. So Breath of the Wild, it's an open game. You can do all sorts of things in this game. I did that, and I got to complete everything. I beat all the Divine Beasts. I did most of the tasks and everything. And my last thing that I did was I beat every single temple in Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. There's something like 100, I think. There's a lot. And 120 maybe. And I beat all of them. And as soon as I did, I stopped playing the game. I didn't go beat Ganon, and I didn't let the credits roll, and I've not since done so. Which is, I don't know,
That's what
I think
Logan
that's
did,
really
too.
interesting.
He went through and did like a lot of the shit, and he goes, I can beat him easily. I haven't played him yet.
Well, he has those still. He did go back and actually beat him.
Yeah, he told me, but I'm just saying that's what Logan did.
Right, but it's been much longer for me to have between completing everything else and beating Ganon to finish the game than for him.
I'm not saying it's a competition. I'm just saying there's a similarity there.
Right. I was just explaining that I'm exaggerating the point that I have taken a long time because I played lots and lots of Breath of the Wild and did everything but that. Well over, I don't remember how many hours. That's a lot.
Now you play as Zelda, right? I've never played Legend of Zelda.
You actually play as Legend, and Zelda is your last name.
I think it's
Legend of Zelda.
Oh.
It's kind of like
Zelda's like
Legend.
that.
Wait for it, Dairy.
Zelda's like the land where you come from. Your Legend of Zelda. Kind of
No.
like Nicholas of Indiana.
It's kind of like Legend's your first name, Zelda's your family name, and you are Legend middle name of Zelda. It's kind of like Legend. Wait for it, Dairy, right?
Because this is Zelda.
Rock is
now.
technically dying as a genre.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm wondering if the cycle turns
It was a
over.
good poke.
It was a good joke.
The-
You guys
and,
you guys did it again over there. Is this something that we may be interested in talking about as well?
We're just
Or
talking
Rock and
about
roll's
music
dying.
history.
I don't know. What were you guys talking
we
were
we
talking
kind of talked about a
Legend
couple
of Zelda
things.
And video games.
We talked about Legend of Zelda, talked about video games and things that I missed out on experiencing growing up.
about?
But
What?
so they pointed it out very briefly. I'm kind of the person that if somebody says, "Hey, do you guys know this?" Whether it be an older
I was
movie,
exactly the same way.
a movie or a song or
Sheltered,
a game, I'm
I
the
was
one that doesn't
really
know.
sheltered,
Yeah.
so I wasn't listening to
And then
jack
you met
shit.
J.D. Harris.
I'm
he's
still
sheltered, too.
to
He's
that
just-
point because there are so many artists that I've just never listened to, so many movies I've never seen that are classics that I should see and want to.
Yeah,
But I've never,
that I
I've
still
just never
haven't
done
listened
it.
to, but
Like
feel like
this
I need
weekend.
to
I'm
listen
about to
to.
check my
I
battery.
listened to.
Hey, what time are we at? How long are we in for?
106, hour 6.
Okay, so Brandon just found a tick on him. Now I want to look on my body.
So
you wanna
we can
wrap up?
absolutely-
We can keep going. I got a piss though.
So at
Let's
the,
wrap it up then.
do we want to wrap it up or call it a break?
wrap it up.
Let's wrap
it up.
Let's wrap it up.
Well, everyone walked away, but
I'm still here though.
let's go ahead and wrap it up. So this has been Lighthearted Banter, episode 2, filmed in the woods. I'm Peyton Pike, co-host with.
Nicholas Tonga with a mouthful of chips.
Thank you for clarifying. And we have here Brandon. Yeah, Wesley, yell really loud.
Ah!
Devadio, yell really loud.
I'm pissing.
Afro Man
Special
left.
guest.
Afro Man. Yeah, do it again. That was Afro Man.
Walk through the white lane.
Stay tuned for our next episode, and I hope you guys enjoyed. This has been Lighthearted Banter.